Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video of Fox Flicks on the Film Theorist. Today we're going to see how to beat the Smile course of Smile 2022.
Earlier this year, Smile introduced the world to a curse that seems unbeatable. A demon that passes on through trauma and can create hallucinations that are so real, you begin to question literally everything around you. So what do you do when your senses start to be used as weapons against you? You turn to this episode. That's what I have a solution. Here's how you beat the unbeatable demon of Smile.
Alright, Matt.
Hello,
Tell
Internet!
us.
Welcome to Film Theory, the show that knows exactly how to turn that frown upside down. How? By clicking the subscribe button. See? Doesn't it make you feel a little bit better? Well, at the very least, it made me feel better. Today, we're talking about Smile, the 2022 horror film that was an absolutely massive hit. Critics loved it, audiences loved it, and the accountants really
they
loved
liked
it.
it.
You know, because it
Was
made
pretty good.
$216 million off
Damn!
a $17 million budget. Not too shabby.
Oh,
One reason
shit.
for that massive success, the curse that drives the action forward is unbeatable. You see, the story follows Dr. Rose Cotter, a psychiatrist who's traumatized after witnessing one of her patients slice off her face while wearing a big old creepy grin. That alone would be horrible enough, but things get way worse once Rose starts seeing people with that same creepy smile all around her.
Yep, and when she invites the creature into...
Eventually, she realized that she's been cursed by this evil entity that isn't really given a name in the movie. It's not even clear what this thing's supposed to be. Ghost, monster, demon. It's unclear, so I'm just gonna keep it as like curse/demon for now. Regardless, the curse
that
starts
will
giving Rose vivid and terrifying hallucinations, which
that
causes her
does
to
work,
push away
doesn't
from
it?
all her loved ones. Eventually, she learns that the curse is passing along through trauma, and that the only way to get rid of it is to pass it along by causing someone else trauma. Otherwise, you're just stuck waiting for it to eventually claim your life. A ticking clock that the movie tells us maxes out at around 4 days.
None of them survived longer than a week. Some of them didn't even make it past 4 days.
It's a terrifying premise that makes for a fantastic film, but
Wait,
y'all
what
know
would
me at
happen
this
if
point,
someone
loyal
did
theorists. I'm
survive
just
a
gonna
week?
sit back and let the jump scares wash over me as I munch my popcorn and drink out of my gallon-sized jug of Diet Coke. While I
Hell
was in
yeah.
the theater, my theorist cogs started to turn, wondering what Rose, or anyone infected with this thing, could do to beat it. Surely there's gotta be a strategy here that we can work out to either break the Smile Demon's curse, or just play into its rules in a way that makes everyone happy in the end. So I looked online to see if anyone had one, and
tell us
no,
what you got.
actually, not really. No one came up with anything. Or, let me correct myself, no one came up with anything that kept us alive and also didn't kill a bunch of other people. So today I wanted to see if we could
Okay.
possibly beat this unbeatable challenge. Is it possible to
to
create a
beat
strategy
the
that'll put a
smile.
smile on everyone's face? And not in the creepy cursed way. Strap in, friends. We're about to find out. Let's start with the most suggested method and the one that we actually see Rose try in the movie. Complete isolation. You can't pass on the demon through trauma if there's no one to pass it on to, right? Well, it might work in theory. In horror movie theory.
Ooh, I like
Way
that.
too many syllables. But in practice, no,
Why not
not
just
so
call
much.
it
Isolating
horror
yourself
theory?
completely is something that's way easier said than done. In the movie, we watch as Rose tries to isolate herself in her mother's abandoned house.
I don't think you should be alone right now.
I need to be alone. I need to be alone.
Well, there she confronts the childhood trauma that's haunted her throughout her entire life. She processes it, and she basically defeats the demon. Isolation for the win, am I right?
Oh,
Wrong.
right.
What at
Yeah,
first
no.
seemed like a victory for Rose was actually just an incredibly elaborate hallucination. Rose never beat the Smile Demon. In fact, she lured the demon's next victim to this isolated area and then passed it along to him. But okay,
Yep.
what if Rose were
Nice
stronger,
going, you
or she was
idiot.
able to see through the hallucinations? Could it have worked in that case? Well,
Oh, yeah,
no
maybe.
again. Assuming you're not a billionaire, you're gonna need to go to work to pay for stuff. And while you could work from home, you gotta have something to eat, which means getting everything delivered to your door,
This is gonna be
aka
a
delivery
door-
people,
no, not
or it means
DoorDash.
going to the grocery store, aka being surrounded by
Hello,
some of the most
Fresh?
aggressive people on the
Is that
planet.
what's about
Okay,
to
so
happen?
I suppose you could do it if you were able to avoid the
Oh, for a
hallucination.
second I thought he was about to do like an ad kind of like Hello Fresh, but no, he was just saying like those areas. Okay.
And you worked from home and had everything delivered by a remote drone. But even then, even if those huge conditions were all in place, there's still a massive problem with this solution. This plan has to be permanent. There would be no breaks to your isolation. Every day for the rest of your life would be spent alone, without anyone or anything to talk to other than the demon tormenting you. And even without the supernatural element here, social isolation to this degree would be really bad for your brain. Studies
Oh,
have
yeah,
shown
no
that
doubt
socially
about
isolated
that.
people are more likely to suffer cognitive decline, memory loss, dementia, impaired concentration, depression, anxiety. All in all, the isolation
Damn.
strategy requires an insane
all
number of
sucks.
difficult qualifiers to work perfectly, and would still ultimately lead you to a hard life full of mental anguish forever alone. In the end, I wouldn't necessarily classify that as beating the smile curse, so let's keep looking, shall we? One other solution
Go
I saw
on.
proposed by the channel Wolfman's Got Nards, incredible channel name by the way, was based on the
That
idea
is
of
an incredible
controlling who
name.
you pass your trauma onto. Remember, there's more than one way to pass on the smile demon to the next victim. If you brutally kill someone in front of another person, the trauma of seeing that passes the curse onto the witness. This is what the character Robert Talley did in the movie to escape
That's
the
what he
smile
did.
demon himself.
A man there escaped that chain by killing his neighbor and passing it to his neighbor's wife. Your patient is going to die unless she kills someone. That's the only way you can get rid of it.
And it worked. The
the
demon
only
passed
way.
on and never came back. There's just one teeny tiny itsy bitsy problem with that. Robert Talley is now in prison. Also, he killed someone. That's not a great look, but you know, for now we're just gonna focus on the prison part. What the Wolfman's Nard suggested was exploiting this loophole in a systematic
now it's a
way,
little
taking
funny.
you, your curse, and two of your closest, most expendable friends to a remote location. Step 1, brutally off the first of your 2 travel mates. That should pass the curse on to your second friend who's probably like, whoa, this was not the desert party that I was expecting. Which leads us to step number 2, bump that one off as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
The curse
that
dies with
should-
him, and so does the
yeah.
only witness to your crime. I gotta say,
That
not
would
only
work
does the Wolfman have
completely.
Nards, he's also got
Hey.
himself a pretty solid solution here. Assuming you're thorough in cleaning up and leaving no trace of your crime, you should be in the clear, and the demon is defeated once and for all. You survived, you don't have to live a life in
Really
isolation,
lost.
and you're not in prison. Technically, you've completed the assignment. There's just, you know, 2 little problems there. The dead bodies that you left in your wake. Sure, you found a solution, but was it the best solution? It's kind of like beating a video game without
2
getting all
lives
the
for
achievements.
everyone?
Is there a true ending here? Is there a way to do a pacifist run, survive, stay out of prison, and kill 0 people? We gotta at least try,
I'm
right? Okay,
not
so
sure that
what
would be
else do we
possible.
know about this curse? Well, the smile demon doesn't seem to be able to manifest itself in any physical way. Anytime we see it manipulate something in the real world, it's quickly revealed to be a hallucination happening inside the mind of the current victim. For example,
That
here,
would
while
make
taking the
sense.
form of
Oh,
Rose's
God,
sister
not this
Holly, it
scene.
knocks
Nope.
on the car window, but it isn't actually there. Or here, when it makes Rose believe that
Oh,
she's
thank
gotten
God,
a
you
call
didn't show
from
the
her home
next
security
scene.
company, but the phone disappears from her hand when a real call comes through. At first, the solution here seems like it should be to set up totems, kind of like in Inception, things that can help you realize what is and isn't
Hey,
real.
wait,
in
didn't
that
they
movie,
say
the
that
main
in the
character used
movie?
a spinning top to determine if he was in a dream or not. So, could we potentially set up something like this to help with Rose? Well, no, probably not. Like I just said, we see that the smile demon's able to completely hijack someone's senses to
Never
create
mind then.
incredibly realistic fantasies. It's even able to completely change Rose's perception of the gift that she's preparing for her nephew. Though she thinks she's wrapping up a toy train, it's actually a dead cat. If the smile demon's able to make
Yeah,
her think her
that's,
bloody and furry cat is
terrible.
a toy train, I kinda doubt that there would be any way to find an item, sound, or visual cue that would ground Rose back to reality. Rose's senses are always gonna betray her. The hallucinations are just too strong. So what if we could just remove the hallucinations? That then would largely remove the curse's power, as its only mode of attack is by mentally breaking you down. Like I said before, it doesn't have physical power, it only has mental power. There's just one problem. Hallucinations are incredibly complex and still poorly
How
understood
would
by
you
science.
break
The
it?
current working theory is that they're based on the brain failing to properly select which stimuli to focus on and which to ignore. For instance, an auditory hallucination, which are the most common types, they might be
Very
caused by
common.
the brain
Everyone
doing a
gets
bit of
that.
self-talk, but then accidentally thinking that those words were said aloud. And what makes hallucinations especially tricky is that they're spread out across the brain. Because they're actively tricking your senses, they activate all over the brain depending on what type of hallucination you're talking about. Auditory hallucinations are associated with activation of the middle and superior temporal cortex, areas
Okay,
involved in
makes
processing
sense.
speech. Somatic hallucinations, basically phantom sensations inside your body, those are associated with the parts of the brain that are usually processing the sense of touch. So really, to
No,
fight
yeah,
the
that
curse's
definitely
hold
makes
over your
sense, like the
brain, you're gonna
phantom
have to
limb.
fight on the battleground of your brain, and you're gonna be fighting multiple fronts all at the same time. Making things even more complicated are the neurotransmitters involved. At this point, I'm sure you know that neurotransmitters neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers in the brain that allow nerve impulses to travel
from
between
one
cells,
to
right? The one you
another.
always hear about is dopamine. That's the reward chemical. You do something good or
The
rewarding
happy
and your brain
drug.
suddenly gets flooded with dopamine as a big old pat on the back. Or pat on the cerebellum. Hallucinations in your brain,
Yes,
though,
yes,
they're
yes.
not as simple as that one-to-one relationship. Researchers believe that they involve no less than 5 separate neurotransmitters.
shit.
And it's not like the levels are too high or too low. They require levels to neither be too high nor too low, striking a tricky balance. So knowing all of this, is there a way to fight off the hallucinations in a healthy, responsible way? Yes. If you look at Rose's symptoms after she gets infected by the curse, her condition is shockingly similar to the psychotic disorder of schizophrenia, which is characterized first and foremost by hallucinations. In fact, according to the
Oh.
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM for short, persistent supernatural hallucinations coupled with a significant disturbance in work performance and interpersonal functioning are some of the top criteria for diagnosing someone with schizophrenia. And Rose in the
Okay,
movie is
now it's
basically
making
speed
sense.
running her way to that very diagnosis. Fortunately, this means that help may be out there to treat the symptoms that she's experiencing. Antipsychotic medications like clozapine are specifically prescribed to relieve hallucinations for people suffering from schizophrenia. They can help calm
would
down
that
and clear
walk
confusion
for
in a
this
person with acute
cost?
psychosis within a matter of days or even hours. Exactly the sort of treatment time that we need for a fast-acting hallucination-based curse. Now that is a huge win. We're getting the treatment we need to silence the
Put that in the
mechanisms that the
possible
curse is
bin.
using to attack us. But pharmacological solutions aren't going to be enough here, whether you're talking about schizophrenia or the smile curse. You see, individuals suffering from extreme hallucinations
Ooh,
tend
that
to be
looks
less
cool.
likely to take their medication. This happens for multiple reasons. They may deny their illness, they may have paranoia about the medication, they might not think they need it anymore. And the numbers here are telling. Depending on the report you read, anywhere between 37% and 74% of
God dang.
patients will stop their medication prematurely. And that is going to greatly increase the risk of relapse. So to avoid the risk, Rose would also need to be receiving some form of psychotherapy. The incidence of schizophrenia relapse among patients receiving therapy compared to those without is roughly 18% versus 60%. That is a massive difference. Now, to be fair, this isn't
Yeah,
a
that's only
full-out
a difference
solution.
of
The
42.
demon won't be destroyed in her brain or anything. It'll just be silenced. It won't have a means of attacking anymore. It's a thing that'll need to be maintained, lived with, rather than defeated, which honestly
Okay,
is
that
pretty darn
seems
fitting
fine.
for the movie. Sure, on paper, Smile's about a demonic curse that passes from person to person, fine. But what it's really about is mental health and cycles of trauma. I mean, the literal premise is putting on a fake smile, when just under the surface, you're in mental anguish. Doesn't get much more clear-cut than that. All of the other solutions that I talked about today, isolating yourself, trying to hurt others, they're all unhealthy ways of dealing with mental illness.
That is a
Asking
good-looking
for help,
knife.
taking medication, learning to live with mental illness and trauma, they're the obvious answers that so many people sadly avoid because of how much stigma comes attached to mental health issues. And while Smile ends on a negative note, these real-world situations don't have to. Rose refused to acknowledge what was happening to her until it was much too late. And when she
Yep.
did turn to others to help, no one around her believed her.
Yeah,
Let that be the lesson
that
today.
is the
Be
one thing that
open and
sucks.
willing to listen with an open mind when someone cries
You
out for help.
literally went
And
for
don't
help.
always trust the
And they
smile on
just
the
were like,
outside.
"Ain't
We can
believing
be
you,
seriously
crazy."
hurting inside. By helping each other, then and only then can we truly defeat the demon. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. And hey, speaking of beating horror movies, if you
Classic. Well, anyway, folks, that is where we're going to end off today's video. I want you all to remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original video will be in the description below, so remember to support the original creator and all they do, and we'll see all of you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.